this Railscast, I will show you why you should not store a model inside of a session. Here we have a controller, and in this controller we have three actions. The first action, prepare, is setting the session variable to the first user inside of the users table. Now this is something you should not do. You should not store a model directly inside of a session, and I will show you why exactly. It then redirects to the show action. In the show action, we fetch the current user from the session, and then we output some debug information about the user. So this will output the attributes in a way that allow us to see what's going on inside of the model. We then have a link to update this user. So clicking the update link will go to the update action, and that will set something about this user. So here it is setting the name to foo. But this set should be temporary. It is not saving the changes to the database, so it should not stick around. And then we're redirecting back to the show action. So let me show you this in action. Let's get a new window here. We run the prepare action to set the session, and this redirects us back to the show action. And this is right. This is correct. Our name is Ryan, which is from the database. And then when we click update, which will run the update action, this changes the name to foo. Now because we redirected after the update action after saying the name to foo, the name should not actually be saved. So this is incorrect. The database is still set to Ryan. We can reload and see that the change is permanent. This is because we're storing the user model directly inside of the session. Now this saves all of the attributes so that any temporary change is actually made permanent. This can lead to some very tricky bugs. And let me show you that the user inside of the database. So here we have script console open. If we grab the first user and grab the name of the first user, you can see this is actually fetching it from the database. Its name is still Ryan. But here we're at foo. That's not correct. Let me show you something else. In our user model, we have a validates presence of name. So if the name is blank, we'll get some validation errors. Let's change the name to blank and run the validations. Now let's go back to our browser and hit this update action again. Now we set our name to blank, but we also have errors here. Since this is after a redirect, these errors should not be saved. But because we're storing it in the session, they stick around, even after reloading. So this may cause a lot of confusion to the users. They may get the validation errors in one place, come back later, and the validation errors are still showing up on the page. And their name is blank, which is not good. Now let me show you the correct way to do this. Instead of storing the model itself inside of the session variable, let's store the ID of the model. Now this is a simple object. It is so simple that we won't have any problems with this. So instead of fetching the user, from the session itself, let's fetch the ID, then get the user from the database. So now, the user will be fetched from the database every time, and it's only using the ID of the user to reference in the session. This will mean that if we go back to our prepare action, now we have our username back to Ryan, and running update stays at Ryan because the changes were not permanently saved to the database. The user is fetched from the database again. So I hope you found this useful. This shows you why you should not store a model inside of a session, or any other kind of complex object. Objects that are okay to store are very simple objects such as arrays, and strings, and IDs, and hashes, and integers. But complex objects like models should be kept inside the database where the results are fetched every time.
do me a favor and check out our sponsor, peepcode.com. They recently redesigned their website and it looks fantastic.